I hate that we're using the word toxic because it gets thrown around so much that it almost like dilutes what it is. Really, that level of forgiveness is control and manipulation, right? Like if we're gonna label it, it's not necessarily toxic, it's control and manipulation. They're tools to keep an attachment existing and ongoing.
Some of these women forced the relationship when the man was trying to leave, when the man didn't want to be with her. And I think that is what exists in the realm of what's going on here. A woman is trying to force a situation with a man simply because she wants him.
What does toxic forgiveness mean to you?
Women wonder why all the time. Like, where did men get this idea that they could just disrespect the out of us? You know why? It's just because trial and error. Like, we've been doing it to y'all, and there's this
no, it's real.
It's real. There's this toxic level of forgiveness, toxic understanding, toxic maybe not stupidity, but this weakness for men
not holding true to your boundaries, like he said.
Yeah. But where it ultimately hurts the forgivee is that you only. He's been him. He's a constant. You're on this emotional roller coaster that eventually you might fall out of because of this habit that you created on your own, enforced on your own, did not dissuade the other person from getting into on your own.
So I don't feel like that's toxic at all. I think that's how you implement growth.
I don't think I understood fully his point, but I can say that forgiveness doesn't mean you have to go back, if that's what he was saying. Sometimes forgiveness is you let it go and you let him go, so it doesn't have to be, I forgive you, now we can get back together. If he's talking about like, mistreatment or cheating or something like that. So maybe I didn't fully understand his point, but I hope people out there, if they are struggling with that, I hope that they know that forgiveness does not have to mean you stay.
Well, I think that's precisely. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Shan.
No, it was real quick. Jay Prince, Women Friday, needs to be on this show because he feels like that's the best. Sex isn't great unless it's a little toxic.
But that was what I was going to say. I think that's the point that he was making, Chanel, is that a lot of times as women, we set ourselves up because we forgive bad behavior. We accept bad behavior. We don't stick to what we say our standards are. We make adjustments. We don't hold men accountable a lot of times to what we expect them to be, what we say that we want. And so I do think that leads to toxicity in a relationship. And so I think that's kind of what he was getting at. If it's constant, it's not to say that people are not going to make mistakes, right? Because I think that's what the girl was hinting at and saying, well, you learn through, kind of trial and error, and that's how you grow. But I think a lot of times we get stuck in that cycle and we're not necessarily growing. What we're doing is creating more and more trauma that then has to later on be fixed at some point. So I think that's what the point he was getting to about the toxic forgiveness.
So go ahead.
No, you go first.
So at first I didn't understand it. It sounded stupid as hell. And then when he was talking, I mean, he sounded stupid, but it's actually, now that I think about it, it could actually be profound if you understand it. So when you look at toxic forgiveness, you got to be talking about a woman. You have to be talking about a woman. No, but let me explain. This to me, when I was thinking, is like, have I ever experienced something like this? And I absolutely did. I believe this is partly why we have so many single moms in the Black community. This particular issue, and here's why. We give men a lot of flack for having babies out of wedlock, disrespecting women, having children with women not taking care of them. The one thing we don't deal with is some of these women forced the relationship when the man was trying to leave, when the man didn't want to be with her. And I think that is what exists in the realm of what's going on here. The woman is trying to force a situation with a man simply because she wants him. There are men that I know, and we all know, that will try to get rid of you with their bad behavior. They're literally cheating, so you'll leave. They're doing all of it overtly, so you leave. Then he comes home and you still in his bed. Talk about, no, I want it now. No, take the condom, because they want to own you. They think being closer to you, being more intimate with you will make you stay. That is toxic forgiveness. Like I see so many women do that type of stuff, and that's how we end up in this situation. It could also be overindulgence. It could also be fear as why she's not wanting to leave. But now it makes so much sense to me that this is something women in modern society definitely have a problem with. You're supposed to exit.
Mhm.
He's giving you the signs. This is that you need to. I'm not ready to commit. I don't want to be with you, and my behavior is just going to get worse till you leave. But then she just keeps forgiving. She keeps trying to fix it. She keeps doing all of that. And the toxicity is the relationship in general, because we look at the men as toxic, not thinking that the woman's behavior and her gluttony and her overindulgence in the situation is also toxic.
So, I agree with you, but from a different perspective, Trigger Mike. Um, and I hate that we're using the word toxic because it gets thrown around so much that it almost like dilutes what it is. Really, that level of forgiveness is control and manipulation, right? Like if we're gonna label it, it's not necessarily toxic, it's control and manipulation. They're tools to keep an attachment existing and ongoing, right? The thing that and the problem with calling it toxic is like it almost waters it down. We hear toxic so much that we've normalized toxic, and if we're not using the labels appropriately, then like we're not really having the discussion about why it's problematic. It's just toxic, just like everything else is toxic, and then nothing is toxic, right? To forgive somebody in order to convince them that if I lower my standards enough for you, then you should be comfortable staying here. That's manipulation. You're not actually forgiving that person, because the thing that happens, and the reason why I guess I'm semi okay with calling it toxic, is that if you were really forgiving that person, then you wouldn't be building resentment. And that's the thing that happens, is that when you forgive and forgive and forgive, all of a sudden you get to that breaking point where you've built so much resentment that even if that person wanted to fix things, it's not fixable at this point, right? But at the same time, to mistaken what you were saying, is that the gentleman was the one saying it's trial and error, that men have learned to be that way with women because I've tried it with this one and this one and this one, and all of them seem to forgive a little bit too much. And now I don't have to put in any effort into being a good person because there will always be somebody to forgive, right? And that level of like collective trauma becomes problematic to the community, that if we're not all trying to better ourselves to some degree, where we're maintaining our boundaries, where we're expressing our boundaries. And not that I don't think that women can actually hold men accountable. I think women can remove themselves from a situation, and if that woman is a good woman, that is a learning lesson for that man. I don't think a woman can be like, all right, I'm gonna hold you accountable. Men just don't function that way. They're going to do whatever it is that they want.